My role with Candidacy is to work with our Candidacy Committee and accompany those individuals who are interested in pursuing a vocation in Word and Sacrament or Word and Service ministry.
I see the purpose of the Candidacy Committee serving the larger church, the Synod, and the churches within this Synod. We walk alongside our candidates as we help shape and form them for ministry in the church.
One of my greatest joys in working with candidates, or in candidacy in general, is, in all honesty, is the committee that is put together. It is with prayer, it is with intentionality that we're able to knit together some of the most amazing people that will walk along with candidates as they are discerning a call to ministry. And so watching this candidacy committee come together and working together as a team, but also it's their passion that shows as they're working with the candidates. It is compassion as well, because discerning a call or a vocation to ministry is not something that's easy. It takes work.
As a queer person discerning a call to ministry, that was really, the whole process was scary, because I was feeling this really strong call from the Holy Spirit and also external calls from my congregation and family. But then to say, I'm going to follow this path seems so counterintuitive to what I had unfortunately learned as a young child, not in the Lutheran Church. So I was really apprehensive and nervous, and made even more nervous to find out that candidacy was a long 4-year process that was very intentional with a lot of varied people. People whom I can't control how they view me, right? And so when I got here for even just the first meeting, and I walked in the room and the table was full of the most smiling, happy faces. Everyone already knew my name and they were happy to see me and learn all about me. And it just ended up being an hour of us just having conversation. So whereas I had prepared to go into this really big interview and maybe even have to defend my faith, I was afraid, based on my sexuality, it was nothing like that. It was people who were affirming me and loving me and wanting to know so much more about me. I have a wonderful relator in Richard who calls me and wants to know how I'm doing and wants to know personal details about my life, and a committee who also is open to hearing what I think about things.
So each candidate in South Carolina Synod works with a relator or a contact person.
The relator walks with that person individually. In other words, reaching out to them, hearing their stories, cultivating stories, so that when we come together as a committee, the committee meets 3 times a year. And during that time, though the candidate may not come in each and every time that we meet, their relator is there to share their stories.
Patrick's incredible. The level of excitement and exuberance and just the spirit moving in and through this call process with him as he goes to seminary, getting to know his family, his husband and his new son. It's been, for me, fulfilling, and you can't help but smile whenever you either have an in-person conversation with Patrick or whether you speak with him on the phone.
He is so good about checking in on me regularly, even through an email and saying, hey, let's set up a phone call in the next couple of weeks when it's good for you. And he just remembers all these exciting things that I'm doing and all the things about my family and wants to know about those things, and then also is vulnerable and shares about what's happening in his life.
Most of the candidates who come into our committee meetings, for the most part, are nervous, which is totally understandable. It's a life. I mean, they're making a huge commitment in their life, so they're very nervous. So the first thing we want to do is assure them that we're with them. We're an advocate for their success.
The candidacy committee this year is very diverse, and I feel like that has been intentional, and if it has not, then the Holy Spirit has just worked in an amazing way to make up this committee, because there are members of the LGBTQ community on the committee. There are people of different ages. There are pastors. There are lay people. There are young pastors. There are experienced pastors. And so I just feel like everyone has a different viewpoint, and it really comes together when we're sitting around the table and discussing my process and the experiences I'm having, because sometimes some people have questions about, especially what it's like to be a queer person in ministry. And then I'm not the only one at the table. who has those experiences. There are other people who can chime in and share, and it give me resources for how to build myself up in that way.
Candidacy is interdependent with the church-wide office and the seminary. So a lot of the paperwork that candidates must complete, their biographies, completing background checks, those kind of things, that church-wide helps us in establishing and organizing those kind of things. Now, seminary is that part where the educational and formation of the candidate begins to happen. And so where does candidacy fit in? I said we're interdependent with one another. Where does candidacy fit in with those two other bodies that are critical to the formation of individuals seeking a vocation in ministry? And that is, candidacy is that ministry of accompaniment.
My introduction to candidacy was getting really close with my contact person. Mine is Cindy Valentine, who is wonderful and has really become a mentor. And so that started off very early in the process and has just continued throughout.
Well, it's been wonderful. The diversity of the candidates was surprising to me initially, because you have some very seasoned candidates that walk through the door, and then you have the ones that just graduate from an undergraduate program and come through the door. So the pairing of the relator with the candidate is looked at by Jenny and Shelley, Rick, and everybody else. And so I got paired with Emily, who's I think she's probably the youngest that we have. And our worlds we live in two different worlds. The only grace there is that I have two sons that are her age, and so I could relate a little bit to some of the things that she was going through.
Following my entrance, I was kind of shocked because I didn't know that I would be affirmed so early on and going into this. You know, part of being entranced is that internal call you feel, but then also an external call. And so I was kind of shocked that they said yes.
I think when they finally realize that they truly have their call, that God has called them to become a rostered minister and or deacon, and then they start embracing that. And once they have that level of confidence that they can do this, that's when you see all of a sudden they shoot up and surprise everybody.
Any questions I ever have, she is right there. And it's anything from ministry to just personal life questions and that kind of stuff. So it quickly became a process where they were walking with me, and I was actively discerning throughout the whole thing. Like, there were times where I was like, I don't really know if this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And again, from early on, that affirming, the affirmation they gave me of, no, like, we believe in you.
I get to work with pastors and deacons and lay leaders that have gifts for serving the church, and they love the candidates who come through. It is tough work, but it is rewarding work, and there is nothing that any one of the members on the committee that they wouldn't do for the church, for the synod, and for the candidates.
Being at Wartburg, I am the only South Carolinian in my class, but most people are from Iowa and, the Midwest. And so in these breakout rooms on Zoom, or maybe during the weeks that I'm there in person, everyone's talking about candidacy and how it goes. And I hear a lot of lamenting. And I always sort of feel guilty at first, and I'm thinking, should I step in here and tell them how great my process has been?
If there were any advice I was going to give to somebody starting the candidacy discernment process, I would just emphasize that this is a growth journey, and it's something that, you have this committee of people who not only want to help shape you and grow you in becoming whatever sort of pastoral identity or image you're making yourself into. It's also a committee of people who are invested in you personally, and that, are interested in all aspects of your life. And I think knowing that now would have been really helpful to know then, because it would have made the process very approachable. And that's something that I would really just emphasize to people and give them that advice, is that you know, this is something that is attainable, it's approachable, you can do it because there are so many people behind you and who are praying for you the entire time and are encouraging you to see things in yourself that you might not have seen.
This has been the best ministry that I've ever engaged with. My father was a Lutheran minister for over 60 years, so I've been in the Lutheran church for a very long time. And I have never been so blessed to serve not just with the deacons, the lay personnel, the pastors, bishop, assistant to the bishop, and the candidates. Never been so blessed as in walking that path and sharing stories and sharing the candidates' vulnerabilities, our own vulnerabilities, and that partnership that's shared between the two.
If there's any one message to anyone that's going to be part of this process is to know that we are not an obstacle. We want them to succeed, and we want to help them succeed through prayer, through in-person conversations, through recommendations and advice that we think may help them grow. And it's important for them to know that we just want everyone to succeed, because being called to be in a pastor or a deacon is a huge decision. I mean, it's a life-changing decision, and it doesn't just take the candidate, it takes their family, and we want to be their family as well.
If this video has piqued your interest at all in inquiring about candidacy and the process of becoming a rostered minister in the ELCA and the South Carolina Synod, please do not hesitate to reach out by giving me a call here at the Synod office or going to our website and the candidacy page and exploring more about the candidacy process and how you might be called into ministry.